So welcome back to the year 2025. So Lyra, we are beginning the first episode for the year.
Yep.
And we're just talking about, I was just looking at January last year, 12 months ago. We started off by, introducing the three themes we wanted to cover for the rest of the year last year. And those are the topic, right? Self-determination, pursuit of happiness, and small government. And I kind of look at all the episodes we've been doing. Of course, I think halfway through we did a lot of episodes on the American election. And I was just reflecting on that because the three themes, a lot of lessons can be learned from those elections. And of course, from time to time, there will be certain local coverage also. So I thought what we want to do is maybe kind of wrap up the three theme. And because I felt like this year is going to be a bit different.
Yeah, I think most definitely. As in, I guess because of what has happened in the United States, it kind of conclude a season of where a lot of people are trying their very best to pursue happiness, whichever walks of their life that they are in. And somehow there has been, I would say, a good conclusion to 2024 because of what has happened in the United States.
Yeah, and parallel to that, of course, we do have, the Madani government coming into, more than 2 years already. And, we did certain episodes. We kind of try to give a fair coverage to our prime minister. But you can't help but see a contrast, right? In terms of what's happening in United States with the MAGA world. And not only that, there's like a whole kind of revival of conservative populist movement in Europe with Argentina's, having Milei and all these kind of things. Then you come back to reformer Anwar Ibrahim, that seems our government is becoming bigger and bigger. Seems like, everywhere you talk to, people are not very satisfied. And of course, we understand that his term is not up. It's 2 out of 5 years. He still has time, but patience is running out.
Yeah, I guess Malaysians are in a season of what Don Jr. is saying, ETP, education through pain, which was kind of like irony. But when you think about it, actually that was what United States, the Americans have
4
been,
years of pain, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they have gone through that, and somehow because of the hardship, they have learned a lesson. And well, I guess Malaysia just has to come to that season of, well, hopefully not too harsh, the judgment, but it's kind of like a season of really learning to have everything in check, but not being checkmate by the government.
Now, I know we kind of did a wrap up for last year in the last episode, but among the three themes, which one kind of resonate with you the most for the last year? And maybe you can pick out one or two incidents or developments locally that kind of, because we kind of outlined the three things. Both of us, of course, from Sarawak, self-determination is something that is being thrown around every now and then. But then I still feel like a lot of people, even Sarawakian who are fighting for self-determination, don't quite understand what it means. But anyway, which of the three kind of resonate with you the most?
Well, I would say, well, I guess it's kind of like between pursuit of happiness and self-determination. Yeah, I felt like both are quite interlinked in the sense that both actually the goal is to have liberty. The goal is to have freedom. So I felt like that's, a lot of people have different kind of interpretation towards freedom, what freedom would mean to them. Because freedom to one race here in the nation could mean oppression to another religion. So I felt like with what is happening in Malaysia, we have seen those sort of conflict, especially when our prime minister is being very, very vocal about supporting a certain cause in the Middle East. So I think, I guess somehow because of what has happened in Israel and Middle East, and also the sort of conclusion that Israel is coming into, that season of literally just coming against 7 war front. So I felt like because of that has sort of caused me to have a different kind of appreciation towards freedom, that if we are not careful, we could just yield too much of our authority to the government and like basically just say, I think playing into the cards of the government by saying that, hey, you know best, so you plan it for us. So we have always said that, I mean, given the opportunity, if PH was in government during the COVID era, I think MCO would be much worse.
Yeah, we said that many times already. And it's interesting you mentioned freedom, because the other day I met with someone who is into social media and into optimization of search engine, those kind of thing. Because, whoever wants to go in and kind of, make themselves known, or able to monetize, certain algorithm, then you always have to look at the people and the crowd. But one of the things that, of course, we talk about the power of people. People can choose, but I'm very concerned about cancel culture, because in Malaysia we call ourselves conservative, right? But yet you see cancel culture is so prevalent in social media, and now of course, if you are being cancelled by other people, because of because people don't like your product, people don't like your posts and things like that, it's fine. But this seems to be like a weaponization and almost like a mob rule kind of thing, especially when we talk about, in Malaysia, a sensitive topic like Israel, Palestine, and then we had
Special rights.
special rights. We had the BDS boycott. Then last year, I kind of just scroll through some of the episodes. We did a few on affirmative action, which is always a red hot topic. But if Malaysia doesn't want to deal with it now, when will we deal with it?
Yeah, I guess also a lot of I guess the right word would be self-righteousness that has been portrayed because of our wrong understanding and wrong interpretation of what freedom means.
Yeah.
I felt like there is a lot of self-cancellation even that you are kind of like self-sabotaging to, hey, we need to be very, very careful about certain topics. So why should freedom be limited or conform to a certain sort of thinking just because it's inconvenient to other people? I mean, when you have freedom of speech, you're going to have opposing views, and opposing views could be quite constructive towards the growth of a nation. So I guess it's like because of that, there's a lot of different kind of interpretation towards self-determination and even like the idea of liberty, where I guess it's like very, very prevalent now that you see in the Madani government, the Prime Minister's party is not even defending his coalition. So I guess it's like, are we friends or are we just enemies?
Yeah, we just talked about very recently, like just today, hundreds of reports were made against two federal ministers, Nga Komeng and Hannah Yeoh, over, one over Hannah's book, which was published more than 10 years ago. And then, of course, Nga over his, Christmas event. And Taya Parang wrote a very interesting article in Malaysia Kini and say, look, you people always say that, Islam, whatever happens there, it won't affect the non-Muslim. And here you have some Muslim attending a non-Muslim event, and you're saying the non-Muslim is responsible. So I thought his way of framing the issue is very interesting because, even Prime Minister is open to the Sharia Amendment Act, the Constitution Act. And this kind of thing just doesn't bode well for a multicultural nation like us.
Yeah, I guess if you think about it, I think the Prime Minister is, in his silence, we are kind of moving closer and closer to theocratic sort of, quote unquote democracy. I mean, they would think it as democracy, but actually you're really moving towards theocracy where you're being governed by a certain religious view. And I don't think that will really, really sit well. I mean, if you're like a nation that is just of one race, everyone
Turkey.
Everyone can just be that, which is fine. I mean, because you all have the same common values and things like that. But we are in a nation where, in a way, we are kind of like United States, where we have like a lot of migrants that are coming here for many, many reasons. I mean, many generations have been settling down here. So we are as much a Malaysian as any other race here. So with that, if we just want to impose a certain set of view and kind of like just walking on eggshells, I don't think that will really bode well with a lot of the people here, because Madani government also has the thing, hey, who's your biggest supporter here?
Yeah, there's a big contradictions, and sometimes we talk about it, and is it by design? Is it because of historical development? Is it because people just are not free to voice out. You know what happened to all those people who are for multicultural? You know what happened to people who wants this kind of openness? You know, GPS always say, well, you come to Sarawak, we show you something different, but you are in the Madani government. Why are you silent? So this is a contradiction that I'm hoping in this year, 2025, people will start to see and demand something more. And that's why we kind of discuss. We don't want to continue to harp on these three issues, but it will always be a foundational issue for us.
Exactly.
But we want to talk about how people can be creative, because we said so many times already that GPS, for example, just has so much leverage. Even DAP has a lot of leverage. Of course, do they want war? Do they? I imagine if today they will say, look, we have 40 plus 50. I don't know how many MP seats they have. They can put a huge spanner. Now, of course, people will be like, be realistic. What can they do? Well, with GPS, they can do something, but of course, they do not have the best of relationship. Then people will be like, oh, it's not realistic. You want them to work with pass and things like that. But I do feel like people are not putting enough check on PMX, and that's why we are at where we are.
Yeah.
So when talk about Nga incident and Hannah's incident, I feel like as a prime minister of one of the biggest coalition partner, you should at the very least come out and support. And unfortunately, I have to say, I haven't seen any evidence that our prime minister is truly for multicultural. And I mean, we talk about it one episode, right? The more he pander to a certain group, the more they seem to reject him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just look at his Twitter account, and basically, he's kind of like a prime minister for the Palestinian. Unfortunately, we just have to say it as it is, because he posts more about that nation than Malaysia.
Yeah, a lot of reposts and things like that. But one very interesting thing, just a little bit sidetrack. Did you read that even Palestinian Authority has banned Al Jazeera?
Yeah. I was like, that's so interesting, because Israel has of course led that cause, and then even then, because I think that shows their true colors, because yes, all of them are funded by Iran, Qatar, and yet once they can't agree on certain cause, then their true colors begin to show.
Qatar, of course, they are always, they have been accused of being the destabilizing force in Middle East. But I really felt like they are a bit fearful of Trump's return. And that's why I remember right after the election, all the Hamas leaders who decided they were asked to leave. And then Al Jazeera started to be a bit more critical of Palestinian Authority. And now the whole thing happened. But it's very interesting. I find that in terms of double standard, people begin to ask, when Israel banned Al Jazeera, they were saying, Israel is for fake news and things like that.
Yeah.
But will people say the same thing about Palestinian Authority? And these are the kind of things that I felt, this is the year we will frame it. And even, we talk about self-determination in Sarawak. Remember, we had a discussion with some of our Sarawak friends. And you know me, I always have concern over GPS. I don't buy the bullshit and things like that. I don't, as much as Abanjo has done to taken the right, I felt like they have too much linkage with Taib Mahmud's administration. But of course, to be fair, Abanjo is kind of on the fringe. He is never the inner circle of white hair. But I remember one of our Sarawakian friend kind of mentioned this and said, well, is that the hill you want to die fighting? And it kind of made me think, she has a point. I said, because, we shouldn't fight this self-determination. If Sarawak wants to get autonomy for health, education, I'm all for it, because it will weaken the federal control and it will cause the government to become smaller. So from that perspective, I think it's interesting. But one of the things, and now I just want to hear your comment, because we're coming to a time where it is not so easy, right, for people to, you keep saying self-determination, you keep saying you need to be, since COVID time, think for yourself. But people seem to be like still get stuck in that kind of fear, self-righteousness. But what are some of the creative ideas? Now we talk about the potential. Like we know what needs to be done, but what can actually be done that will help people to maybe be awakened? It's a bit like you know, if you watch the Matrix trilogy, right, it's like, how do you fight the machine? You can't. And it's like even the crew is like trying to revive one person at a time. It's very hard work, right? And each time they walk out, they are like, they cannot believe their whole life has been a lie. And now then some people even curse the people who rescue them.
Yep.
You know, those kind of things. So sometimes when people are told the truth, they don't appreciate it. In fact, they even say, I wish nobody had told me the truth.
Well, I guess there has got to be a creative way of putting the truth in such a way that is more palatable. I mean, not compromising, but palatable, or like kind of like break it down into simple facts. I think people can accept facts more readily than we think now. And that's where the creativity will have to come in. Because, I mean, with the rise of citizen journalists, definitely I do think this is the year to be really just be creative in writing, and really just be vocal about a lot of things. Because, I mean, if the government, especially if the PMX is testing us, we should do the same to him as well. I mean, he should get a taste of his own medicine. And I mean, he's quite easily persuaded in many, many ways. I felt like we could play the emotion card to our benefit as citizens. I mean, obviously not mob rule, but we're gonna have to like just put on the facts and, hey, this is how it is. And hopefully more people will actually buy in that sort of idea by just having light shed on some of these things that they have not thought before. Because I think a lot of people don't know a lot of things because generally there's just ignorance. I mean, aside from lack of passion. So it's those that are ignorant that we should be trying to reach out to, rather than those that are not passionate. In a way, kind of like you play the Moneyball game, like how Charlie Kirk did it in the United States, and they studied the trend and they just felt like, hey, this is the group of people that we can convince. So I guess in that sense could be a bit more targeted and kind of like just reach out to that particular group of people who can actually really cause a shift in the nation. And especially I think like the younger ones, like is it Alpha generation now? I mean,
now is the Z Gen Alpha. I think is like, I think the youngest, the oldest Alpha will be maybe, now they say there's a beta generation already. So
yeah, I mean, those that are
every
born this
15
year
years you
onwards.
want.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, this group of people out there are smart, but intelligent, but probably lack of wisdom. So I think that's the group of people that we kind of have to like reach out to, because this would be the group of people that are past that comfort generation. I felt like, I mean, obviously, maybe my generation is like those that are very, very sheltered, and even the next generation, it's a bit like, oh, we are way too sheltered for our good. So, but after that, I felt like there is that group of people that we could definitely influence.
So they are like ripe for harvest. Now you mentioned something very interesting, palatable. But what is palatable? Like in terms of like in your mind, what would be, I definitely agree with you that, even you talk about social issue, you talk about how government works, you talk about even things like inflation, why subsidy, removal of subsidy could be a good thing, why having large civil service is not a good thing. But I find people just cannot have a good appreciation because first, the media doesn't do any meaningful reporting and analysis. And then you have those who supposedly to be more progressive, but they have their own agenda. They are into the liberal progressive agenda. But but there's something there, right? That for the people, we don't want socialism.
I think it's more like, in my mind, I'm kind of like linking it to like efficacy, efficiency, especially like I mean, we are so used to listening to the so-called experts who have been wrong like a decade. Why should we still be listening to them, So with that, I felt like there is that opportunity where we could really just basically just ride the wave off, because now mainstream media is weakening, and in Malaysia, you generally don't have like a voice that is pretty much like opposing view. And so when the echo chamber is weakened, through the mainstream media, I think that's where there's that sort of avenue. And what would be those things that are palatable to Ben? I felt like we could actually kind of like learn some lessons from Nigel Farage. He's kind of like a one-man show, and yet you don't realize, hey, actually the party is like gaining a lot of popularity and really just among the youngsters, especially the youngsters. I think young men desire to be led in this nation, and they do want to be like successful. They want to be like great leaders, and so I think those would be the group. I wouldn't say like macho sort of topics, but something that will cause them to begin to think how I can lead the nation and even leading my own family. So in a way, kind of like parenting, but not quite parenting in that sense. It's more like how do they deal with the efficiency even in their workplace, even in like certain things, and you run the nation like how you will do business. Like where's the profitability sort of mindset? Sorry, you run the nation like how you run business. So I think it's more like how Trump is doing it, but it's just like breaking it down to more local level, more Malaysian. So I guess because Malaysian likes to follow trend, I think, unfortunately, but I think we kind of have to like just break away from that and really just come into how do we make things efficient, because this is the year that you have to be very, very focused on certain things, and unfortunately we're not used to accountability or like efficiency. So that's where I felt like there is that gap, there is that market for those sort of topics, I think.
Now, you mentioned earlier on learning through pain, right? And do you feel like we're going through that phase in Malaysia?
Yeah, I think we're kind of still pretty comfortable.
Not quite yet, because you know, like we mentioned about citizen journalism. So I think even in this show, we haven't really explained. I mean, we did one way back during the COVID time, but a lot of what's happening with the citizen journalism that really helped to propel and secure Trump's victory really birthed out from the pain or Democrat Joe Biden's administration. You know, just basically it caused the everyday person's life to be very, very difficult. So we are not quite there yet, but do you foresee? Okay, we're not here plotting doom and gloom, but that's always the, you know, what's the word we use? There's always a trigger, right? You need some kind of trigger that will cause people to really step into this. And the other thing, when you were talking about palatable, is really, I feel like those people with a gift of communicating, teaching, and those who are social media friendly people. I'm not a social media person, so I try to stay away. And it's very interesting. We talked to our friend and Michelle the other day, right? I mean, we didn't have time to do recording, but we're like, almost most lawyers are not on social media. Yes, some are on TikTok, try to promote a bit of their services and things like that, but they are like very cautious about, I'm not going to expose myself legally and things like that. So like you never see judges on social media, for example.
That's true.
So certain personality, certain job, certain assignment, I think not suitable, but there are many, many, many others who are more than suitable. And I think these are the people that I think you should take your gift. People with this should really go in and try to, master a topic. Whether we have Chan here doing crypto with us, and just different kind of passions, and not expert, but really it's a very what's the word already? It's like it's like on the ground kind of thing. And with social media and things like that, it's kind of easy, right? You don't have to invest a lot, but you have to risk your persona and put it in the public. And that means you will be, that means your facts, your presentation, you might be fact checked and things like that if you get somewhere.
Yeah, I think that would be fun.
Is that something you imagine yourself? I mean, for us, our show is not really like social media, we're more like pre-recorded kind of thing. We're not there engaging, but social media is like engaging all the time. It's a different ballgame, right?
It is. I was just telling you about like Brad Cooper, who was formerly from Daily Wire. Even just without posting anything, it's already 500K sort of subscribers, followers. Yep. So that's impressive. I mean, if you really harness the wind of this social media, I think you could get like a huge following, and but I do think with what has happened in the United States, there's an avenue for podcasts.
Yep.
I think in Malaysia, it's just people are not listening enough. So
You're not reading enough, and people are like, like we're one of the
least,
nation that read the least
yeah, about what, 2 pages?
a year. But do you think podcasts could help people who doesn't? My son doesn't like to read so much, but when he's doing his stuff and things like that, he will listen to like long form. Like he's interested with Lord of the Rings and things like that, and he will listen to people talk about a certain incident or things like that, expound on it for half an hour and things like that. So it's similar to podcasts, but you just have to find a topic you like, and if you find people, you mentioned parenting, so many people are wanting parenting help, they can't find it.
Yeah.
So I just met one couple with young children, and they were like, when people want to find help in Malaysia, they can't find it. It's either very religious based or it's very out there. It's just not common, and yet we know parenting is such a big issue.
Yeah, and also you mentioned like maybe like a week ago that wellness is a religion. So I guess from that point of view, we could actually really zoom into that, because a lot of people are very conscious or even aware of mental health, those sort of things. But I mean, obviously, we're not like into gurus like counseling and things like that. But maybe there's a way of presenting certain topics like this where they're gonna just have to like toughen out. The people have to toughen out. But I think that's where you could really shape people's mentality by, because what you hear is how you're thinking. It's just like how like when you're processing certain things in certain language, in a way that language is discipling the way you are thinking. So I do think the podcast has that sort of creative power to actually shape how we are thinking and even shape our worldview. So maybe I do think there is that opportunity for long form. People should kind of like just get into it, because there are many famous YouTubers, influencer like Genie Boy and things like that, but they're also kind of like into like a lot of talking and things like that, and people are still following. So we just kind of have to like find that right topic where people will just begin to tune in. Hey, actually I get wisdom from this podcast, and I could actually apply, and certain things just work for my life.
Yeah, especially in terms of where the nation is heading. Talking about economy and things like that, and talking about government. There seems to be a right market, I guess, because it's like people always want to look for a topic or a platform that is not overly saturated already. Like you go to social media, if you want to have growth, YouTube is not where you go. It's like already saturated. People should go to, I think TikTok is where people prefer to go, but it's just a matter of time before TikTok will be oversaturated.
Exactly.
But in terms of the government structure, in terms of the future of the nation and things, I know it sounds like a very big topic, but there seems to be in my mind potential for people to go in here, and people might even underestimate their own wisdom and some of the things that they can contribute, because people actually want to hear. So it will be very interesting to see. I mean, because the data from the American election is very, very clear. All this long form, you talk about Rogan, you talk about Elon Musk, doing the huge interview with Trump and things like that.
3 hours.
Yeah, all those, the data coming back already are much, much more impactful than Oprah, than the anchor interview with Fox and CNN and ABC. I mean, the ratings speaks for themselves. So yeah, maybe we're not there yet. We're not a very, like you go to social media, people still kind of. I think the idea is we're just doing business, we're doing commerce. So you have all those selling, all those are kind of still happening. But in terms of who wants to hear people talk about government and politics and social issue, but you'll be surprised.
Well, we just need to find that right time. I mean, election is going to be up in another 2 years' time, and people are going to just have to like learn certain things, and you might as well get prepped now.
So you mentioned again, even in terms of expert, right? You know, sometimes you go to media, established media, and experts on government, constitution, always seems to be those few people, right? And it's like, so how do we? But I'm just find it very. I find it very interesting that in America you have people who are just like I don't know, you know what's your background, you're like lawyer, or you don't even have to be like remotely linked with government, but somehow you develop an interest, because with internet today you can really study anything you want if you want to.
Yeah, I think on that note, actually, I felt like it's more like common sense versus the experts. So all we are trying to stimulate is common sense.
Yeah, with COVID, you know, it's such a great example that the experts fail us big time. So, so anyway, you know, our time is sort of running out, but maybe just give us one or two more points, or some of the things that you might want to do. You know, like I mean, like what we want to do. Maybe in terms of our guests, maybe in terms of some of the topic.
Well, honestly, I would be very, very keen to want to like hear it from, I mean, those representative from DAP. I mean, honestly, because it would be a good time to actually
like what? How do they really feel about the whole Madani?
I mean,
are they authorized to even talk?
I mean, they are pretty compliant.
We have to find some backbencher, because if you're the front bench, I can totally understand why you cannot go against the cabinet and prime minister. Maybe we should ask our friend whether he can find some backbencher who is willing to talk. I'm sure they are, but you know, backbencher, when they kind of communicate their dissatisfaction, they're usually kind of ostracized. But why not, right?
Yeah, and also actually I would be keen to like want to listen to you know, people like how Lance Warnell can be quite he's from United States for our listeners' benefit. Well, someone who is vocal about his faith. So I think we should look for people who are kind of like vocal about their faith and how do they actually view Malaysia as a whole. Because obviously all we want is freedom of speech, freedom of religion in this nation, and we're not really seeing it, all these things. So that there could be that avenue to talk about that where people will be interested. Because I mean, I'm just thinking about Keluar Sekejap. They started off with super political topics, and now they are like branching into religious topic. I mean, they are not like religious experts. I mean, yes, obviously they are devout believers, faith practitioner. But the thing is, they are also like hiring like imams to come to the show to talk about faith. So I think people are interested to see how others are processing their faith. I think, especially in a multiracial country where a lot of things are just becoming politically incorrect to say. But how do you navigate through and make certain position that could be so contrasting, and yet it is actually okay. I mean, it is okay to be politically correct in this instance.
I'm really glad you kind of conclude. You know, I think our time is right now, because that was kind of my thought when I saw the article about many police report made against Hanayo and Ngakomen, and immediately I'm like, look, we're on and on with this for many years ago. When is Malaysia going to have the maturity to talk about, you know, your faith is your faith, my faith is my faith? Nobody will read a Christian book and immediately become a Christian and vice versa. we won't go near a mosque and become a Muslim, right? No. So it is common sense, and yet people are just so edgy about it. And maybe that's one of the things we can do for people who are willing to talk. There's nothing wrong to talk about my faith. I'm not like we're not breaking the law and things like that. But people are just kind of like, oh, this is sensitive. Let's not even go there. So in fact, now that you mentioned this, I felt like 2025 people should even go into the sensitive area, because without the confrontation, how are you going to change? Otherwise, we'll just go back to the same 20, 30 years ago. People are still, you know, kind of being ruled by, you know, we call it the ta sakit hati, right? I mean, there's so many variants. Every little thing you sakit hati. But it is time the nation move from that kind of emotional immaturity.
Maybe we should write into Taya Parent.
I found out that he's like 81 years old, and in a way they explain why he is so bold, he doesn't care at all. So we need to find people like that who doesn't care. But I'm hoping that some from at least Pakatang, Harapan will wake up and see that this is not going to end up well for them.
Yeah, because it's kind of like if you think about the aspiration of our first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, what he said is like, I want to be the happiest Prime Minister in the world because my people are happy. I think at the end of the day, it really just boils down to that. And when people are happy, basically they are free to do the things that they are allowed to do culturally, racially, religiously, within the context of the law of this nation. Then people will be happy. People will be happy to have that sort of freedom and not like being where the government is like overreaching their controls and things like that.
Yeah. And I think generally Malaysians are happy, but we will benefit so much more if people don't have to tiptoe around certain issues. They will make Malaysia great again, I think.
Yes.
All right, so I think with that our time is out. So looking forward to the next episodes, and we kind of like shift our theme this year into finding all the more creative things that can be done.
Yes.
So until next time, bye for now.
Bye.